Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the TripleJump podcast. It's a video game podcast. My name is Ben.
My name is Peter.
And my name is Ashton.
Good morning. Happy, is it? Could it happen? Could it be today?
It's not an angry morning, is it?
Maybe, could it possibly be? It's Thursday morning. All the rumours are suggesting that something big might happen today. I'm not going to say what it is.
I'll say what it is.
No, don't.
Ashton's flight might get sorted out.
I
or
doubt
might
it.
Not. Ashton's cross.
I've been mugged off by Booking.com and Asiana Airlines, and I've been trying to get it sorted all morning, and then they kept lying to me and telling me it wasn't impossible transfer, even though it's minus 30 minutes. And so I was really annoyed. So
Just to get onto a plane 30 minutes before her first plane lands in
exactly,
that
and apparently it's not impossible, and that's the minimum requirement
Just
for the
teleport.
transfer time. And I was
teleport.
Yeah.
and I was getting well mardy with the, the
Just
customer service.
Just be supernatural.
Yeah, I kept being like, explain to me how it's not impossible. And then they kept being like, if you check the flight time, I was like, explain to me how it's not impossible.
Anyway, more on that, perhaps in the big discussion, if depending on whether Nintendo make a statement about it or not.
Yes.
Yeah, Nintendo are very keenly observing Ashton's flights.
Yeah.
And deciding whether or not to let
To
her
announce whether I
to
can
let her
on the
get on
flight.
the correct plane or not. Yeah.
Whether
So-
I can switch to a different flight.
Very good.
Switch to a different flight.
Yeah.
Very good indeed. Well, it's time now for the sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you knew this, but each and every week we're sponsored by a very real video game adjacent sponsor. Helps us keep that bulb on in this studio. I've got the ad read in front of me here. Today we are sponsored by potentially a very exciting announcement, or perhaps not, depending on what happens. It is, of course, the It is, of course, the Nintendo Switch. Who? What?
Who?
When? Where? Why?
When's it coming out?
I don't. How? Hello?
Excuse me?
Nintendo Switch. Who? What?
What can you tell me about this product?
Yeah.
I can't tell you
Oh,
anything.
right.
This is
No.
the problem. Well, in fact, there
Well,
are lots
actually,
of leakers.
I feel like you could probably tell us a little something about
Yeah, the leakers have told us most of the things about it.
That was almost everything.
So it is Thursday, the
16th.
16th of January, and it is 10:30 a.m. And today is the rumored day that the Switch 2 will be unveiled.
Yeah.
At this point in the day, we don't know if that's going to happen.
I thought it was tomorrow, but apparently I was the only one who thought that it was tomorrow. Because I thought it was the 17th.
It was the 16th, but I also thought the 16th was Friday, so I'm in sort of both camps, really. Can't really
Yeah.
Pick a side.
Yeah.
I mean,
Pick a side.
this is obviously all completely rumoured and like just apparent leaks from insiders. So it could have been total nonsense. But it seemed like we were waiting. Well, we are obviously waiting on Nintendo to announce something, and it seemed like it was going to be this week. So
What's the first thing that Fraser said in our chat true, which is that the last time they did a big announcement, which was he talking about? The
Was
actual
for the Switch, yeah.
one,
First Switch.
They only said about there's going to be an announcement
Yeah.
today. A few
it was like
hours
all
ahead
done
of
in 12
time.
hours.
And that was the one with
Yeah.
the pervert Mario
Yeah.
peeking from
Yeah.
behind the
Yeah.
curtain that Nintendo.
Yeah,
They might
he
do the
may
same
have told
thing.
lies later, but
Yeah,
that
he
was
did tell
true.
lies later on. He told Ashton that it had been announced. Well, he told everyone it had been announced, but
Yeah, he
It was
put
a
a
lie.
fake tweet in there.
Yeah.
But that's where we stand currently. We don't know. If something happens during the recording, James Jenkins is going to call me on my telephone. If something happens after the recording, then we'll just splice in a conversation about whatever happens.
if it happens before tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah.
As it stands at 10:30 a.m. in the morning, it's very much Nintendo Switch. Who?
Who?
What? Where? When?
When?
Why? How? I don't know. And as such, we are not sponsored by Nintendo Switch Who, because that's not a thing. Nintendo Switch Who is not. What are you looking for? You the Dead Island 2 the spider?
It's too cold.
Dead Island
I'm
Who
telling
the
you,
spider?
it's too cold.
Who?
He's not there.
He's in your bathroom though, right? He's usually there.
Probably.
It's probably, yeah, but it's really cold in my bathroom now. It's like having a wee in a fridge.
Don't wee in the fridge.
Don't do that. We are, of course, sponsored by our wonderful patrons over at patreon.com/Team TripleJump. If you go there and support us, you get all sorts of amazing rewards, including asking questions on this podcast, early access to weirdest and worst games, and exclusive access to episodes of Rules Boss and Main Menu over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Team TripleJump. Thank you so much, patrons. TripleJ.mup is our website. There you can find links to our YouTube, our Twitch, our Discord. If you want to get a cameo from us, anything, it's all there. And also TripleJumpShop.com to get some amazing merchandise. I'm wearing 2 stacked up because it's chilly.
I'm also wearing the same hoodie.
I'm not wearing any official merch.
Guess what I found in the pocket of this hoodie yesterday?
What?
or the day before.
Did
a
I answer the
mask.
spider?
No, a mask.
Oh, yeah. I
like
was
a-
there when it happened.
Like
Like
a
a-
COVID mask.
Oh,
Yeah, because I think I don't wear this hoodie very often at all. It doesn't normally come out, so it just sits in a box.
but I
next
feel
to
like
my
I've
desk.
seen it since 2020.
Yeah, you have, but
Just not
like
as his hand
once
in his
or
pocket.
twice.
What?
Yeah. What?
What?
Yeah, only
I
once
thought
or
you
twice.
wear this all the time.
Well, no,
No.
that's me.
Peter wears that all the time.
I wear this
the
for 6
track
months of the
jacket
year,
all the time.
and then that one in the summer.
Oh yeah, that's
so this has just
true.
been in the office since then.
Oh wow.
Obviously, I should take it home and wash it, but I'm stressing that it has barely been worn that entire
It
time.
might still have some
Hence the mask.
some COVID on it.
Well, that explains why I feel so unwell,
Yeah.
so sickly all the time. Anyway, that's TripleJumpShop.com. There's a couple of things coming out this week on the channel, isn't there, Ashton? Peter?
Yes, there is, aren't there? There's a What Went Wrong out this week, specifically based on #1 hit of last year, definitely didn't die after 2 weeks, Concord.
Yeah.
What did Concord go wrong?
Yeah,
you
a
not
bit.
hear?
Just
Oh.
as like no one's really talked about it.
I was
It's
really
been
looking forward to that.
Oh, you can still get it. You
On
can
the
still
down
play
low,
it. It's
yeah.
still fine.
Yeah, it's just
It's
wrong.
not fine.
It's not,
It's
and you
not.
can't still get it.
No, you can't.
And
There's a-
actually, if you had it, they've taken it away.
You can't buy it in CEX. Even the day of, you couldn't go into CEX and get a physical copy. They just
No.
took them all off the shelves and not allowed to sell them anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be out on the channel now. No, tonight, Saturday night,
Oh.
tonight, at the time of release. And yes, that's a great video. James worked very hard on it. Deep dive all about Concord and all of the lead up and the disaster and the fallout and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, an interesting worst games ever that if it wasn't quite as bad as it was, could have been kind of a weirdest games ever as well. It was pretty weird. Calvin Tucker's Farm Animal Racing.
Who's Calvin Tucker, Ashton?
Should I know who he is?
No.
Okay, I don't know.
Fun fact. Here's
Be
a
wit.
science fact. Yeah, be wit before the episode comes out. In America or somewhere, it's called something like. There's a lot of, there's a lot of somethings in this
Yeah.
fact. Calvin
Yeah.
Tucker's Farm Animal Racing Tournament. The anagram or acronym, sorry, of that is fart, and it's intentional.
Yeah,
Ah.
in the game as well.
Calvin Tucker's fart.
Because it's funny.
Yeah,
Right.
it is
Really.
funny.
But Calvin
It's
Tucker's
actually
not
funny.
like, it's not one of those characters where you're like, it's a Wurzel Gummidge kind of situation where I don't know who it is.
No,
and it's
no.
like,
Calvin Tucker, as far as we can tell, has never existed.
right,
No.
okay, cool.
It's a
not a
tax.
real
I think it's a
person.
tax thing.
Yeah.
It's Calvin Tucker. Anyway, you'll have to watch the episode.
Yeah.
It's out on Sunday, out now for patrons. Thank you, everybody. Shall we move on to question one?
Yes,
Yes. It's from Neil Lawton, probably.
Lawton?
Or Loughton.
Or potentially Loughton, Lafton, or Lofton.
Please let us know
Loughton.
in the Patreon comments.
It's difficult being English when there's a GH. It could be any. It
and
could,
an AU as well.
and an AU. It could stand for literally any letter of the alphabet. Hi, BAP. With the news that Sony has patented AI to predict gamer input before they make it, I would like your thoughts on this. Personally, as a more senior gamer that no longer has the time to invest in getting good and plays games on easy mode, I think it could be useful in recognizing when I'm struggling and automatically giving hints and tips or speeding up my reactions, with my concern being if it becomes noticeable that I would stop feeling like it was me playing and feeling like I'm watching someone on Twitch, but without any of the banter. How else do you think AI could be implemented into our gaming experience in the future? From Neil, aka Last Choice ID, a long-time lurker.
Oh.
Well, thanks for lurking.
Hi,
Yeah.
Neil.
I've got a bit more info on this from Push Square, or of course you could watch the news video we did all about this on
Go
the
on.
channel.
Now.
Do it now. This is according to Push Square. Sony's filed a patent that, as likely as not, will never see the light of day. Known by the wonderfully evocative name, Sony Patent WO20250101132 Timed Input Action Release.
Woo!
Love that song.
The speculative tech aims to streamline the timed release of user commands by using AI to determine your next button press. A camera pointed at the player's fingers would use machine learning to predict the player's movements and, theoretically, cut down on input time. Sony rationalized this tech thusly. There can be latency between the user's input action and the system's subsequent processing and execution of the command. This, in turn, results in delayed execution of the command and unintended consequences in the game itself. I don't know how I feel about this. I think there's definitely one good thing that could come from this, which is that there have got to be some accessibility. What's the word?
Uses?
I guess is
Applications?
applications is the word, but
Just
uses
Means
also
the same
Yeah, you
word.
said, yeah.
uses.
Right, okay.
It's
Mine
got
was longer.
there will definitely be ways that this can be implemented in terms of accessibility for those who have certain needs when gaming, with the handling a controller and so on, and even perhaps in instances where a more senior gamer such as Neil might have hey, those are his words, might not think that their reaction times are as good as they once were, and so on and so forth, but as we talked about when we talked about it on the news video, when it comes down to perhaps the more sort of average gameplay experience that most people may be having, I don't quite see how this fits in, because it's either that no one's really understanding this right, / it's not being reported exactly as the way it's intended, or it is being reported as intended, and therefore I don't understand how this fits in. Because if it really is a camera that is predicting what your next input is going to be, first off, what if it guesses wrong? Is there then going to be like a random input that you were not wanting to do? And secondly, even if it is predicting what you're going to do, where is the line between, are you still playing the game? Do you really feel like if a cool thing happens on screen where you just dodge something in time, like, will you still have the kind of satisfaction of?
I'd try and catch it out. I go,
yeah,
oh, psych. Yeah. And if it presses a button and goes, it's stupid robot.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I also saw people in the comments of this article on Push Square saying, this will ruin fighting games, which, I mean, I can see their point in that there's so much.
But the inputs still have to mean something.
They do, but I think there's so much nuance about reaction time, and like that. Those games come down to frame perfect inputs. I mean, I guess you could say that about a lot of games these days, but it is so focused on input time, input delay, reaction time, exactly which frame you're pressing something on. And if you introduce a whole new thing in there where it's going to be like messing around with your game, then But on the other hand, presumably this would be something you could enable and disable, particularly in a fighting game tournament or something. So. I mean, those are my thoughts on the story. We can talk about how AI could also be implemented, but what are you thinking about this actual technology first? I'm
going to try and be polite about this, because whenever I talk about AI, everyone always gets up my ass about it, because I think AI is bad 95% of the time. And I just think it's pointless. I think this is weird and silly. And I understand that, like, it can be accessibility applicable, but but I do think that it almost seems kind of nonsense. Like, why would you want the AI to predict when you want to play a game? Like, surely, I mean, I feel like getting good is one thing, but like, it's about learning the game. And if suddenly the game's like, well, you should press X now, so I'm going to just do it for you, it kind of eliminates the whole learning thing of it. I feel like this a lot with AI is that, like, it thinks we're stupid. It like leans into the fact that, like, oh, you can't write an email, use ChatGPT to write an email. You can't draw a picture, use this to draw a picture. Like, it leans into the human nature of, like, we're a bit lazy, and if something can be done for us, we don't mind it being done for us in a lot of ways. And I feel like this is, like, the idea of it is just kind of the start of, like, well, I don't need to press the X button because I know it's going to do the X button for me, so I can just, like, not even bother moving my thumb.
It's like WALL-E, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's very much like WALL-E.
That future looked great.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Fat and rolling around and
Sounds
happy.
phenomenal.
But yeah, I don't think it's particularly useful, and I think that it would make us more lazy, and it would just lead to people being even more dependent on things like this. I feel like an AI in a game where it's like, you've died 4 times, we've made the enemy a bit easier and we're giving you a hint as to how to play, or we've made your parry window slightly longer because you are struggling with that mechanic, is one thing. But I don't feel like there's such an emphasis nowadays on you have to be the best at a game and play the game on the hardest difficulty and struggle your way through a game, as much as I feel like maybe the energy was a little bit like that before. Like, most people play games on easy or normal now, and that's fine. And I don't really see the benefit of this.
Well, as I was saying to Ashton in the news video, the way that Sony seems to be describing it is that it's an actual input lag issue that they're trying to deal with here. Like, it sounds like they're trying to circumvent a hardware problem. And I was saying, do you Do you ever feel like input lag is a thing? Unless you're obviously streaming a game, which can have those sorts of issues, and that's a network, that's an internet issue. But if you're sitting with your own console, do you ever feel these days where like you press a button and there's noticeable input lag? Does it seem like a modern issue?
Not really, no. It'd have to be specific circumstances.
Yeah.
You said network things. So when I've streamed things from my PS5 to the Portal,
Yeah.
there's been notable delay sometimes and things like that. So yeah. And also when we played Borderlands, remember when we were using Randy Pitchford's brilliant Shift servers? And the input delay on that was bonkers as well. That didn't make any sense. But that's not to do with the
But that wouldn't be
console.
fixed by the AI
it
console.
It wouldn't. You're right. So yeah, AI in general, a bit of a boogeyman for good reasons. In this instance, it's not generative AI, which is in my books the bad
The worst kind. Yeah.
it's still machine learning, but AI does genuinely have some good applications that can actually help people, which shouldn't be overlooked in certain circumstances. I don't really see it necessarily in this case. I do understand the accessibility argument for sure, in that ultimately, regardless of how this is used, and let's be honest, this is never going to be a thing. They're never going to make
these
this.
things happen all the time. They patent something and it never gets implemented.
Exactly. But if it did, it would likely be bundled in with other accessibility-focused features of some kind, if anything, to research how to improve people's connection to a game or people's ability to play a game. And that's inherently not a bad thing. However, I should say, for that reason, generally, I have no issue with this in principle, but I do have an issue with, if it was real, the sort of invasion of privacy that would be necessary with a camera on my hands, which feels a little bit weird. I don't think it's mad to suggest that we will reach a point where games, perhaps on a newly introduced, even easier difficulty, will essentially play themselves with very minimal input from the player. Detractors of easy mode would say that we're already at that point. Perhaps people who know that I'm playing Metaphor with a guide would argue that it's basically playing itself because very little thought has to go into it. I am still at least pushing the buttons. But even if you go back and look at Guitar Hero and compare the easiest mode of that to a mode that even remotely accurately replicates the amount of guitar inputs that are required to, make the song happen in the first place. Bad terminology there. But, you press 3 buttons and you do an entire guitar solo. Some would argue that that's sort of, we've already reached kind of that point. I don't necessarily agree with that as such, but I think ultimately this stuff, if it ever did happen, would be entirely optional. People would never have to use it.
Yeah.
And
Especially the camera thing.
The camera thing is going to turn a lot of people off.
They're not going to mandatory put a camera in your house. So.
Connect? No, I don't. I just don't think it's going to happen. But if it did, there would hopefully be altruistic applications for it. It would be for a good reason, even though it's making the headlines because A, it's a big gaming manufacturer doing a patent, and B, because it's got AI in it. And people want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, to answer the second part of the question, I think that one way I came up with a good one and an evil one in terms of ways AI could be implemented. The bad one, because it would be generative and would literally take jobs away from people. I can kind of see happening, sadly, which is that in a generation or so, we might have NPCs who have generative AI in them, so that you always hear new conversation and new little bits of lines and things as you're wandering around a city. Don't like that, because as we saw in Spider-Man, for example, there's so much of that can just be done without AI. You can be wandering around and people are just having a rooftop picnic talking about, did you see the game last night? And they'll go on for like 3 minutes just having a conversation. I think we can already do that and produce enough of a volume of stuff where that's probably enough. You're not going to be playing, other than something like GTA maybe, you're not going to be playing a game for long enough that you will eventually hear everything so often that you recognize it. But I can still see that happening, unfortunately. AI NPCs. A better one that I don't think necessarily counts as generative would be, I think it'd be really interesting if we do have AI that is able to just play a game from the kind of perspective of a human, where it's kind of watching a game and just doing the inputs digitally. I'd love to see how AI can do like weird speed runs and stuff.
Okay.
So there's already tool-assisted speed runs or tool-assisted super plays. I think it actually stands for a TAS, where that is being done by a human, but they're basically going through frame by frame and setting up this whole list of inputs, and then they basically press play, and the character will just do crazy stuff that a human could never do.
It's a bit like that game that I completely forget the name of. Where is it like Super Hot?
Yeah.
Where it only moves when
Oh yes.
And then at the end you see
it replays
doing
it.
all this.
Yeah.
So that happens in the speedrun community, where they go through a game frame by frame, and they're then able to do just completely impossible things that no one could ever do. And there's some amazing stuff that can be done, particularly with older games. But as I say, that's being done by a human on a frame by frame basis. But I think it'd be really interesting to just get an AI to sit down with a game and just get through this as fast as you can using whatever exploits you want to do, and just see what it does. It might come up with new strategies that speedrunners haven't come up with yet. Could be interesting.
Yeah.
Can you see any? I know how much you hate it, much like the rest of us. But can you see any uses for AI in gaming?
I don't really know if it would class as generative. I guess it sort of would. I don't think I would want it, but I think it would be funny/fun to see a world like the world in Free Guy, where like it's a bunch of NPCs who have like developed their own lives, and like they just the city gradually, like people will just do their own thing, and you'll see a guy like, oh yeah, that's the guy who goes to the bank every day, but now he's off to the coffee shop because he's met a woman on the 5th day of me playing this game. Like I think that's interesting, but I also feel like that is something that, I mean, it takes more time and effort, don't get me wrong, than just an AI says, and now this guy's going to go to the coffee shop and have a date with a woman. I guess like you can technically do it, program people to gradually kind of change their storyline as they go. I always like when I'm playing a game when I feel like the world is changing with me, when I'm like doing something and I'm like, I can see that I am making a difference in the world. I love a radio station telling me what I've done to like, they're like, oh, there was a big incident happening. I'm like, oh my God, that was me. They're talking about me on the radio. That's crazy. But I love that. So if there was a way that it could improve that or adjust that or change that, then I that would be nice.
Yeah.
Sort of.
It's not really AI is the thing, but I really like your suggestion about how and this has happened in the past as well, how games can just adapt to how you're playing, especially in terms of difficulty.
Yeah.
If you're struggling.
Yeah.
One thing that's mentioned in this patent actually is things like it can tell that if you're getting frustrated. So like repeated button inputs and like yelling and like like verbal stuff, like it will be able to tell if you're getting frustrated. And
Makes you do a mindfulness exercise.
Yeah, it's like, right, go outside.
Tells you to stop playing.
Yeah.
Displays that
Scratch.
screen from the Wii where it just is a little window. It says, make sure you take regular breaks. Like, go flip yourself. Don't you tell me what to do.
Suddenly it can't find the controller because it's now lodged in the TV screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The DualSense adaptive triggers just lock in place.
Yeah.
You're like, someone's put a padlock on my controller. But I would like it if games, like something that I did enjoy again about Dragon Age the Veilguard is that you could really tailor your experience. You had lots of different accessibility settings. So my difficulty setting was technically custom. It wasn't easy, medium, or hard, or whatever the equivalent. Like you could tailor different things so enemies take more damage or they give more damage, and you do certain things in different ways. The different parameters you could tweak. And if I get how to perhaps the people who are most in need of that stuff, that could be overwhelming and confusing. And so, excuse me, choosing like a base setting for people like that, like easy, and then seeing how they get on and then adjusting those sliders behind the scenes, you'd probably want to opt in. I think would be really good. But that technology exists without AI. It is technically learning about how you're playing, but I don't think it's like AI seems to be such a big catch-all term at the moment.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's difficult to specify.
I can't remember what game it was that really made me feel shame when it was like, You all seem to be struggling a little bit. Would you like to adjust the difficulty down when I was like, how dare you? I didn't want to be told what to do.
Yeah, it's where it's obviously there's the whole new wave of AI and language models and that kind of scary stuff. But you go back to even in the 90s, Spyro 3 had adaptive difficulty, and if you had like collected every egg so far when you got to one of the bosses whose names I don't know because I'm not familiar with that game, Spike or something.
A Grungo Flungo.
Yeah, Grungo Flungo, the one who flies and spits.
He's some Star Wars idiot.
Sorry.
And spits fireballs at you. He flies. There's like a meme in the community where if you play well up to that point, that boss fight becomes really hard because the game is like, oh, okay.
Oh, you're an expert.
All right then.
All right, Billy Big Balls, go on then.
Whereas if you get there with like just enough eggs to unlock that place, then it's way easier. So, these things have been done for a while under, a sort of a proto AI early form of it's where the line is, isn't it? There's there's new scary AI and
it's a non-damaging AI. In
AI
the same
has been
way
a terminology in
that-
relation to games for a long time before it was what it is referred to now. So it's difficult to draw that line. It's like to make a comparison, it's a bit like the remaster remake thing where it's kind of used interchangeably. Although I would argue that the definition of remaster and remake is a lot clearer. But AI is difficult to quantify and specify, I would say now. But we know what generative AI is. We know that is stealing other people's work and burning down forests, and we don't like that. But this kind of stuff, even if it seems a bit pointless, is it's fairly harmless, it seems. Shall we move on to what does that say?
It's a new segment.
Oh.
I just, in my frustration this morning, I had like a, how diamonds are formed under pressure kind of situation. And I thought we could do a new segment that I think we should call What We Playin.
Ashton's Diamond.
Cool.
It's What We Play in time to talk about the games what we have been playing. Peter Austin.
Yeah.
What have you been playing, please?
I've only been playing one game this week, and I played loads of it. More Outlaws.
Nice.
I have gathered, I believe, unless there's going to be some big plot twist, I've gathered every specialist, expert I need for the big heist.
Nice. There's a big heist?
There's a big heist.
Oh.
That's not a spoiler. That was in the product description, I think. So we're potentially ready to go and do the big heist, but I've been doing lots of little, not even heists. I've been robbing people.
You mean causing trouble?
I'm a little scamp.
Being a little outlaw.
I still have an
hell.
excellent reputation with the big slug boy that is Jabba the Hutt. He loves
Flungo
me.
Grungo?
Flungo Grungo, yeah. And I've also played through the whatever it was called, the like gambling DLC thing that I got as part of the season pass that was very kindly provided to us by Ubisoft, and it was pretty good. I don't know how much it costs because there's not a whole lot to it, like it's not very long, and so depending on what the actual price is of it, like buying it separately, don't know exactly whether it's worth it or not. But there's some cool set pieces in it where you're doing a lot of running away from people shooting at you, and it feels a bit more cinematic than the game sometimes tends to feel. There's definitely moments in the base game that are a bit sort of Uncharted, if you like, if you'll forgive that quite old comparison at this point, but not so many. Whereas this thing, you can tell that they've thought, all right, we'll make a DLC and we'll tailor it and we'll really like build it around a couple of exciting moments. So I have enjoyed that a lot. In fact, I've not quite finished it yet. There's still a little bit left for me to do. So maybe I don't quite know how long it is, to be fair. I'm just assuming that it's nearly done, but it might not be. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of Sabak and having a good time. And looking forward to the big heist.
Is it the wild card DLC?
Yeah, that'll be it.
It's on sale for £9.74.
Okay, well, as I say, I can't actually attest to how long it is, given that I haven't officially finished it. So, but it would need to be a fair bit longer than it has been so far for me to say that's a justifiable price. But
how much is it normally without the sale?
It's like $12.99
Right.
or something like that.
Not sure about that. It has been really good, but it's just not long enough, I think. The whole first segment is, so the premise is, again, not really a spoiler, that you're just you go to a kind of a high stakes Sabak game on a casino cruiser, and when you turn up there, before you get to do any of the exciting playing the game, there's like this whole investigative thing where you have to get an invite to get into the game.
Okay.
And so you're like wandering around, like listening for bits of intel and like breaking into people's rooms and stuff, which is not quite as exciting as it sounds because you're very much just following the quest marker around the room,
Right.
and then to another room, pressing on that thing.
Listening to the voice live.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking, okay, when do I get to play the big exciting game of cards, which is fun and is well written. So, yeah, that's a bit like, okay, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory? Is very much the gist of it. But yeah, generally, I've had a really good time with all of my Outlaws shenanigans this week.
Nice. Sorry, Ashton.
That's all right.
I was going to say, imagine if you asked for Star Wars Outlaws for Christmas and your grandma brought you Street Outlaws 2 Winner Takes All,
Oh no.
which is a racing game.
Looks like it.
It's
yeah.
got real people at the top. There's a guy in a cowboy hat.
Cool.
That
It's,
title could be any genre. It could be a dance
Yeah.
game.
It's
could
on
be-
sale.
Oh,
It's 90% off.
Oh.
It's now £4.49 if you'd like it.
wow.
Wow. I'm
you could
good,
buy
thanks.
2 copies
Thanks,
of
Grandma.
that
Thanks.
instead of the
DLC.
DLC.
Yeah.
I just got an email. My
What?
phone's on my lap from Nintendo, and I was like, and it's just about Donkey Kong.
Oh,
Damn it.
Donkey.
I've only played one game this week. Also, I have finished Ghost of Tsushima.
Yay.
I have done everything in the main game, and I am now playing the DLC.
nice.
I love that game. That game is great and beautiful, as I say every time I talk about it. I just think it's a really good game, and I'm annoyed that it's taken me this long to play it. Annoyed at myself for getting so confused about the game for years. I don't know why I did. I just was.
What do you mean you were confused about it?
Well, I thought it was Sekiro. I got
oh, right. see.
I got it
yeah, I remember you
confused,
saying.
thinking that it played like Sekiro, and I wasn't going to enjoy it. But turns out it's nothing like Sekiro, and I'm just stupid. So, so yeah. But I've been really enjoying it, and I'm currently doing the DLC now. And I was talking to Fraser about this morning, because Fraser, I think Aiden was saying that he's just picked up Ghost of Tsushima to play, and Fraser was like, "Yeah, it's quite a long game." I was like, "Well, I finished did everything in like 45 hours, and then I'm just doing the DLC now." But the DLC is quite interesting because it kind of sets you back to the point where like you've got no one knows who you are. By the end of the game, you're like the Ghost of Tsushima, whereas now it's like you're just some guy, just the lone samurai again, and you got to go through it again, and you get the ability to use your horse to like charge into groups of enemies, which is quite good. But I feel a bit bad about it because I have a new horse now.
Oh.
I got to name a second horse.
What happened to the first horse? It was a different horse for the DLC.
No,
It went to the glue factory.
something happened to Nobu.
What happened to Nobu? Nobu's fine.
Nobu's fine.
He's retired.
He's fine, and I didn't
It's in a big
cry
paddock somewhere.
when something bad happened to Nobu.
Good. Well, you wouldn't need to because nothing happened.
He's
No,
upstate.
and then so now that Nobu's retired, I've got Kaze. He's my new horse, and I feel a bit bad when I'm like running him into groups of Mongols. I'm like, oh, I feel like he's hurting himself. Like, this feels like dangerous.
Yeah, they put their
They're
swords
quite
out.
hefty, and they've got swords and
Did you
metal on
not
them.
feel like that about your previous horse?
Well, you couldn't charge into them.
Oh, right.
The horse, when you go into battle, the horse just runs away.
Okay.
Whereas, like, you can use your horse as a battering ram in this one. But yeah, it's nice. There's like a kind of this motif where something's happened to you, and you kind of like drugged a little bit, and throughout the game, like the DLC, you kind of have these like moments of like someone's talking to you. So where you might assassinate someone, as you have been doing the rest of the game, someone will then be like, "Your father wouldn't be very happy with you doing that, would he?" You stabbing your blade without any honor, and I'm like, whoa, what the hell? Get out of my head. But it is lovely. I'm enjoying it so far. I say it's lovely. I mean, there's loads of people who are dead, and like
You've killed
it's
a lot
quite
of them.
gory. I've killed quite a lot of people, but it's lovely when it's not that. I'm in like this nice like sandy cove with like white cliffs, and I'm like, this is delightful. And then my brain will be like, they're all gonna kill you.
Stop
And I'm like, whoa, I'm just trying to enjoy the vibes. But yeah, I'm excited to carry on playing that. And I think I've probably got, once that's finished, I'm going to move on to Dragon Age: The Veilguard. So not another short game coming up next,
No.
but excited to finish this one.
Amazing.
And excited for the next one to come out. Please give me a release date, Sony. Thank you.
Ghost of Yotei.
Yes.
Yotei. I have played a few things.
Oh, yeah?
I played Marvel Rivals
Yeah.
with my friends, and I oscillate so wildly between if I'm not winning and I'm dying lots. This is the most frustrating and irritating game that has ever been made by a human being. And then when we win and I do pretty well, I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
Right.
It's fine. It's not really for me. I want to play with the boys.
Right.
I want to hang out with my friends. And so we're playing Marvel Rivals, and I'm enjoying it for the most part, but I find myself, it's like the evening, especially when I played it last week with them, as the evening draws on, and I just get like quieter and quieter because I'm like, I'm bloody seething inside right now. This is making me so cross. I don't like versus multiplayer games. But I did get MVP again, and by and large, my kill to death ratio is positive.
Okay.
So I do pretty well at it, and I tried to play as a different hero to help out our team because we were filling it out with a couple of randoms, and everyone went DPS, and that didn't work. And I had an even more miserable time. And then you know what? I switched back to Star-Lord, and I did great again.
You had a fun time.
I had a way more fun time. Speaking of games potentially generating some new voice lines so you don't hear the same ones. If I hear Star-Lord say, someone's got to guard the galaxy another time, I'm going to throw my controller through the TV.
But they're Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
He
how
is.
is he going to guard the galaxy?
He tells me every time, and every time he does his moves, he says the same thing. Every time he leaves the spawn, he says the same thing. Every time he dies, he says the same thing. And you know what? That's fine. There's like 30 heroes in that game. It's okay. I'm not really there to listen to him. But yeah, especially when I'm not doing well and he comes back and he says some quip about dying, and I'm like, shut up, you shut up. I know you died. I was there. So Marvel Rivals, it's going strong.
It's our game.
In fact, they just released the Fantastic Four, didn't they? And Mr. Fantastic, Captain Fantastic, he is so overpowered, or was anyway. He's got this buff where he just decides he's not going to take damage anymore, and his entire torso goes like barrel-shaped, and all the bullets bounce off him. And then his ultimate, he just turns into like a big goopy blob, and he just like slams like a bouncy ball off the floor and just kills everything.
Wow.
Nerf him!
People have been
Nerf
using the invisible woman, yeah, to
Captain
like
Invisible.
Captain Invisible Woman, to find hackers and cheaters.
Really?
Yeah, because she obviously goes invisible, and if people are still aiming at her, and
Then she knows.
then they know that it's a hacked lobby.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
That's good to know. We did manage to get one full lobby of the boys together last week, and that was way more fun.
Nice.
Having everyone play different roles and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a challenging one for me. I feel very divided because the entire time I'm sat there, I'm thinking, having a great time playing with the boys, and then also thinking, I would rather be playing literally anything else on the planet right now. But Marvel Rivals, there's nothing against Marvel Rivals. It's just my own proclivities when it comes to gaming. Played a bit more Silent Hill 2. Got really drunk while I was playing it, and I can't really remember the last like half an hour of what I did. But I'm in the hospital,
Cool.
and the nurse is there, and that's
Is that not just what happened after you
so
got drunk?
sexy.
there were just nurses everywhere. Turns out I drank too much, but genuinely, I've been wandering around the same floor of this hospital for like at least an hour, just like, what am I missing? But I was very not with it. So I will be going back to that. I'm sort of playing it in chunks, like once a week, just setting aside some time and playing it. And yeah, so I'm going to play a bit more of that. Still enjoying it. Still think it looks a little ropey in places, but looking forward to playing more and experiencing more of that game and its weird metaphors. A little bit more Call of Duty Zombies I played as well on the castle map because they've added that directed mode. Didn't get very far because I was in a group, a lobby of randoms, and none of them wanted to do the objectives that we were being told to do. And after a while, I thought, I actually don't have time for this. So I'm going to leave and forfeit all of my points. And apparently the next map may be coming out at the end of this month, which is exciting. Mainly, though, I've been playing
Talking of weird metaphors.
Metaphor Refantasio, which I am still enjoying and is still continuing. I spent about 3 hours in a bloody dungeon last night because the guide that I'm following isn't the best guide. and it's not as good as the one we did for Resident Evil.
I mean, nothing's as good.
Nothing
as
will
that.
be as good as that.
Like 2 rooms.
But it does do things where it's like, okay, proceed through the dungeon, and then it's like it expects you to go through an entire dungeon in one go, where normally you'd reach a break point and come back out and replenish your HP and MP and come back the next day. But it's like, no,
The guide
continue.
wants you to do it all in one go.
Yeah.
Okay.
The guide wants me to do it all in one go. So I was like, how bloody long? It just kept going and going. I had to basically burned through all of my restorative items, like all of my MP restoring items, which in Atlas RPGs, you tend not to be able to just buy from vendors. They're like more uncommon because they want you to use the time mechanic to come back in later. All of my healing items, which I can, get back again. And it just, oh God. So anyway, that was a bit of a slog last night, but I got through that, and I've got another party member, and I'm still enjoying it. So I'll probably talk about it again next week.
Cool. And now it's time for question 2. Comes from Janet Wicks. Hey OBAP, in another supposed leak from Virtuous, they claim that the unannounced Oblivion remake will take inspiration from Souls-like combat.
No.
As a long-time Bethesda player, I actively appreciate the fact that I'm not doing fast twitch get good gaming when I play Oblivion or Fallout. What do you think of these potential changes? Is this a fresh take, or will it ruin a classic?
I think this has been slightly misinterpreted by the online discussion sphere, which is not really...
Ew, I didn't like the way...
the discussion sphere, which I hate those guys. The guys from the sphere.
The sphere,
the orb.
They think they're so good because they don't have corners in their discussion.
The online
chambers.
discussion sphere people think that Ubisoft says that we are not allowed to own our games anymore.
Yeah.
That is true. That's
what I saw about this is that it's specifically the Soulsborne comparison. It wasn't just Souls-like. It was Souls-like and action games, and it was referring specifically to blocking, which was described. The original blocking was described as too boring and frustrating.
Yeah.
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 So
it's rubbish.
I think my understanding is what they're saying here is that you will be able to block in a slightly more interesting way, such as you might be able to in a Souls-like game or a more modern action game and so on, or even arguably in a more recent Elder Scrolls game. In Skyrim, all right, the blocking was still the same in that you just hold your shield up, but something that I really missed when I went back and played Oblivion after playing Skyrim is that you could do the shield bash in Skyrim, which I really like, because if your enemy is blocking and so are you, if you give them a quick shove with your shield, they would sometimes get staggered. And the moment that was taken away from me, or a moment I didn't have that anymore when I went back to play Oblivion, I thought, oh man, I miss being able to ram my shield into people's faces. That was really good. So I think what really is happening here is that blocking will just be a bit more interesting, perhaps, and that it's not suggesting necessarily that the entire combat system has been reworked to be an exceedingly difficult Souls-like system. That's hopefully what we're looking at.
Yes.
Hello?
I mean, I don't really have that much of an opinion regarding Oblivion because I have never played the original version. Mm-hmm. But I'll just ask you then, in terms of in a more general sense, given that we've kind of said that this isn't necessarily the case, general sense. Do you think that if we were like a remake or a remaster that adjusts the combat significantly enough that you would have to sort of relearn how to play is making an error, or do you think that it's maybe like a good thing to modernize it? Because obviously like Final Fantasy VII, the remake and Rebirth is a complete shift away from how the original game plays, and in every other sense of the word a complete shift away from the original. So do you think that has struggled like a little bit to get the same charm as the original, and do you think that is the gameplay's fault, or do you think that's like something else's fault?
I did see an argument in the article I took this from about it being, just the blocking and stuff. That how will that affect the charm of original Oblivion? Because part of what I think makes Oblivion so endearing is that it is a bit crap in places, or a bit wonky, or it's aged in a certain way that although I might think, oh, it'd be nice to shield bash or to have a more interesting combat, equally going back and playing Oblivion with, warts and all, I still think is a very fun experience. And I am a bit concerned, not just on this point with the supposed Souls-like combat, but just generally if it's been even visually like massively improved with the, and we're not going to see necessarily some of the weird faces we once saw. Will it feel like Oblivion if it has been polished to an extent that it's lost some of the slightly wonky charm? I don't know.
But there'll be to play Devil's Avocado, if they're trying to get other new players in, they don't want it to look crap.
No, of course not.
And they want it to be
for me.
No, I know. But I mean, there is that charm of the original audience might think, well, I like the jank and I like that it's a bit wonky and that the combat sometimes is a bit annoying. Whereas you've got new players who are like, God, this combat's annoying.
This is awful, yeah.
And this
if
doesn't
you played
look
it
very
for the first
good.
time, you would think it was terrible.
Yeah.
What's all the hype about this game?
Yeah,
Rubbish.
exactly.
No, definitely. Yeah.
It's a difficult balance to strike for sure, because part of the charm of Oblivion in particular depends how rigorously they're remaking it, is that you can make absolutely broken spells.
Yeah.
That just destroy, even some of the things that you can find just in the game that were made by Bethesda, like enchanted warhammers or something that have electrical damage. If you hit someone with it, they'll go flying backwards. And people obviously took that to the extreme with some of the stuff they could make. And if you've got more realistic combat, would that still work? Could you still do that? I agree, though, Peter, with what you said. I think it has potentially been taken out of context slightly. I would genuinely be shocked if the combat we got in this remake, if indeed it exists, which seems more and more likely now, despite all our doom and gloom on that news video, when admittedly there wasn't a lot of information. I'd be surprised if it comes anywhere close to a Souls, even on higher levels. I think the worst case scenario for people who don't want that is that it would probably just be brought more in line with contemporary RPGs. So things like more of a focus on stamina, dodging and blocking, parrying, and potentially locking onto enemies one at a time. And I understand how even that might be too much for certain players. Janet points out that she likes, the more basic combat from the existing games. But my hope would be that if those systems are in place there, regardless of how it might affect people's view of the game in terms of its charm or any perceived loss of charm, is that there would be a lot of accessibility options, a lot of tweaks that you could make to the game. I know that this is not being potentially developed by Bethesda, but Bethesda have historically in recent years been very good with the amount of options that you have to tweak your experience. So, because they know full well, they know full well that while there is a huge wait for the Elder Scrolls 6, that a lot of people will be checking out this game. And the audience of Elder Scrolls players, mainly Skyrim at this point, is enormous, and it's of all skill levels. And if there's any kind of significant barrier to entry, they could potentially do, even though it seems quite innocuous, they could do some lasting harm to that fan base who might think, oh God, is this what the next one's going to be like? I don't like this.
I seem to remember Oblivion and probably Skyrim and maybe even the Fallout games as well, having a difficulty option with about 5 settings. You could get it right down to really easy. I think it was called Apprentice or Novice or something. So that was always an option that you could make the combat a lot easier. Well, it was the game in general, really. But so it would be surprising to go from a game that had a whole host of difficulty settings or options to then suddenly say, right, now we've got Souls-like combat that's really difficult. And it would. I mean, for one thing, it'd be a lot more work on the part of the developers to completely overhaul the combat rather than just introduce some new blocking animations or whatever it is. Again, if this leak is to be believed, apparently the stamina system has been changed as well. So there was always a stamina bar, and if it got down to 0 and someone hit you hard enough, you would almost always fall down on the floor and have to get up again. And apparently that happens far less often now. So if your stamina bar is 0, you're not constantly getting knocked to the floor. So if we're to believe this leak, it does sound like they've kind of just looked at what is now a very old combat system and said, how can we modernize it a bit? And yeah, perhaps the word Souls-like has been taken a bit out of context, especially given that it said Souls-like or action games.
Yes.
I think it just means modern third-person or first-person melee games. Yeah.
I'm just remembering when I was playing through it a couple of years ago, I think it was at this point, and I did the arena. And the arena is, and this could, this is also a difficulty setting thing, but the core combat doesn't change. Is that you say, yes, I'm ready for the next round of the arena. I want to become the champion. Okay, go through this door. You go through the door. Introducing in this corner, it's this guy, and on the other side, it's an elf with a big sword. Like, okay, here we go. You run in, you waggle your arm back and forth like this about 6 times. And then the crowd erupts and you turn around, you go back down and you talk to the man. He goes, wow, you did a great job. Yeah. And then you say, I'm ready for the next round. And you just do that until you become champion. And anything is better than that. Yeah. Sure, just any kind of stakes.
That's my ideal arena.
Yeah.
Because I hate combat arenas in games.
You should play Oblivion.
Yeah.
Well, it's a whole quest line in that one, which is nice. Yeah. Like you get, people will stop you and go, wow, it's the champion.
The grand champion.
The grand champion.
And then you have your adoring fan.
I've never met an arena I liked.
No, to be fair, me neither. I don't like that stuff in games, but I like it in Oblivion anyway.
I do wonder though if they, because one thing to change the actual combat system, the sort of hands-on, like the way it controls and the animations you have, but does that necessarily mean that they would change the way you could just enchant ridiculous items?
Because, I hope not.
Yeah, I kind of hope not.
There's like a level of things that you need to keep because it's like a key part of the game, and things that you should improve to make it better for everyone.
Yeah, it's like you, as the player, you have agency to, like, if you know that what you're about to do is going to break the game, it's up to you to decide whether or not you do it. Like I, at one point, this is long after I'd played the game many times over, I enchanted a 5-piece set of armor and jewelry, where they each had 20% invisibility on them. So if you wear 5 of them, you are 100% invisible and no one can see you. And you will like attack people and they might get like one hit in and then go, oh, where did they go? And then you can just, it was mad. And I was just sneaking around stealing everything. No one knew I was there. Completely broke the game, but it's kind of fun that you can do that.
The real test is whether or not when you drop paintbrushes, I don't know if you're aware of this, Ashton, when you, for some reason, and it was never patched and it's still in the base game, when you drop paintbrushes, they hover at waist height.
Okay.
So what people would do is, because it's just an innocuous item that's all over the place, just to set dressing in drawers and things like that.
And there are item like cloning glitches as well.
Exactly, yeah. So you just amass loads of paintbrushes, and then people would jump on one, drop another one, and use it to scale things they're not meant to. So some people would go all the way up to the top of the Imperial Tower in the center of the city. What I found was really interesting, I did this on one of my streams, is going, because obviously each settlement or city is completely walled, and to get in, you need to either fast travel in or go through the gate and it'll load into the area. You can drop enough paintbrushes so you can just jump over the other side and you can run around this completely like really low poly, unrendered city. And it's really interesting. The game just lets you do that. And they never fixed it. And if they, for whatever reason, include floating paintbrushes again, then I'm all in. I mean, I'm all in anyway. I want to play it anyway, regardless of what they do to it. But hopefully they make it, they keep it accessible, retain some of its charm. But even if they didn't, I'd still be good to go. The version that exists on, Game Pass and playing it on Xbox Series X and stuff, where it's upscaled and it runs great and it looks, great for what it is. So that version will always exist. It's sort of the same approach with the Final Fantasy VII remakes as well. Like I can always go back and play those.
And Sky Oblivion is well on its way to being finished as well. The fan-made Oblivion rebuilt in the Skyrim world. So yeah.
Oh, what is that?
Do you smell that?
Hang on.
Do you smell that?
Kind of strange.
Where's that coming from? Do you smell that?
Oh, thank goodness.
Don't worry, I got some Febreze.
It's going to make me sneeze.
I'll do it. It went straight towards Peter. It's him. He's the stinky one.
Oh my God. It's not helped it. It's still so stinky peculiar.
It's stinky peculiar. Weird news.
Weird news. It's weird news.
It's weird news time for some weird video game news. Remember, if you would like to submit some weird video game news to us, you can do so under the relevant social media post that goes out on a Wednesday. However, if you'd like to guarantee a shout out at this point in the podcast, you need to go to patreon.com/Team TripleJump, support us at the appropriate tier, and become a podcast producer just like
Michael Pendlebury,
Huge Ass,
Andy Scott,
Chip Thompson's Thumbs,
Eric Sue,
Nexus Polaris,
Blake Thomas,
Nicole Hansen,
Great Giggity,
GY Goliath,
Gabrielle Philippink,
and Big
Meep.
Money
Meep.
Bobby
Meep.
Vegas.
Meep.
Thank you so much, podcast producers. Appreciate you all. Peter, do you have some...
Sneeze. Febreze is making me
Febreze.
For a
sneeze.
sneeze, Peter, can you tell me what your weird news is,
I
please?
can. It was sent to us by
I'm just trying to like
Bat
make
the
the
sneeze
sneeze
out of
go
your
away.
nose.
You know, when it's like sitting here, I'm
Yeah,
just
you
trying
just
to
want it
like
out.
either get it to come out or go away.
Yeah. It was sent to us by our writer, Kat.
Ah.
Thank you, Kat. It's according to Eurogamer.net.
No, you're a gamer.
No, we're all gamers.
No,
actually.
you're a gamer.
No,
you're
How
a
dare
edgy
you
wedgie.
accuse me of such a thing?
Oh my god, was it written by your boyfriend? Look at Matt Wales's picture. Has it just been hidden? Look at him.
Look at him.
He does kind
He
of
looks
look like
like-
my boyfriend.
That's him.
Like MB.
That's MB right there.
Written
Yeah.
by Matt Wales. And it's Larian gives Baldur's Gate 3's Withers a pair of big naturals to celebrate 100 million mod downloads.
That's my favorite part of the article is the big naturals.
Yeah.
Like calling them big naturals is so funny.
The subheading is Breast in Class.
Good.
Very good. We already knew Baldur's Gate 3 players loved mods, thanks to developer Larian's previous announcements on the matter. But it turns out Baldur's Gate 3 players really love mods, with the studio now revealing over 100 million mods have been downloaded for the acclaimed RPG. And what better way to celebrate that impressive milestone, you might be asking yourself, than by giving PC, Mac, and console players an officially curated set of Withers boobs. Reese Withers boobs.
Yep.
That obviously is something we'll probably need to circle back to imminently. But first, a recap on those mod downloads. Do we really need to know?
I'd
these?
love to. What
I
are
just
mods?
want to know about the boobs.
What's Baldur's Gate?
50
Show me
million
them big
downloads in
naturals.
October, now 100 million downloads. Right, okay. So after 100 million downloads, Larian proclaimed in a social media post, "You are modding naturals," celebrating the milestone, appending an image in which the 2 zeros in 100 had been conspicuously placed across beloved undead NPC Withers' suddenly more ample chest. And that, it turns out, was just a prelude for things to come, with Larian following up its initial post by announcing it was celebrating Baldur's Gate 3's latest milestone by adding something new to its curated list of mods officially available across PC, Mac, and consoles. That mod in question is Maybe Adams, that's the name of the modder, Maybe Adams Withers Big Naturals, giving everybody's favourite companion, resurrecting pal, the opportunity to
Yeah.
breast boobily
Yes.
players so desire.
That's it. You not heard that term before?
No, I've not.
It's from a meme post about how men can't write women in fiction. So it's
Yeah.
like she breasted
breasted
boobily
boobily.
downstairs.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. As to why Larian has decided to single out this particular mod, it's not entirely clear. But given the studio previously revealed over 10,000 people had downloaded a mod renaming Withers to Bone Daddy, this is evidently becoming something of a
Bone
theme.
It's
Daddy's
such a
big
horny
naturals.
game, man.
Yeah.
So there you go. If you have long dreamed, I mean, I guess the mod was already available. It's just they've
Maybe
added it
so.
to the official list.
I would
but
love like if
big
there's like
naturals.
just a mod pack that Larian have promoted and someone just installs that being like, oh, these must be some good
Yeah,
mods.
these are all good.
And then like randomly without even having any awareness of it, just comes across Withers and it's got a pair of big naturals. And then like no one ever brings it up and then it's their first time playing the game and they're like, it's a bit weird that
Why do
like,
they
Bone
sexualise
guy
women
had
so
those
much?
massive
So
boobs
bizarre.
and you're
that
like,
really took me out of
what?
the game. It's like,
What are you
do mean?
talking about? I have some weird news. It was
Yeah.
submitted by @LaloydW90 on Twitter by by Gavin Lane for Nintendo Life.
Random.
No, that's not Wii Sports. That's live tennis on YouTube.
What?
You'll find out. Tennis fans hitting YouTube to see live matches from the Australian Open could be forgiven thinking they've accidentally clicked on a channel recreating the tournament in Wii Sports. But no, it turns out the event's official channel has taken a novel approach to getting around broadcast rights issues. As noted by Kotaku, the official Australian Open TV YouTube channel is broadcasting live games from the tournament with a twist, lacking the live broadcast rights for matches, a workaround which involves capturing the player and ball movements live on the court and rendering animated versions of in real time is giving a Me-esque spin to the Grand Slam event.
Wow. What
This
a
is what it
world we're
looks
living
like.
in.
Oh, that's so weird. Why do they have to make them look so strange? They have, really high realistic models. In,
Maybe these were the ones that
Top
could
Spin and other games.
most quickly animate themselves, maybe.
Yeah.
As you can see in the screen caps below, from the AO animated match between Botic van der Zandschlup, wow, and Alex de Minaur, the player Minaur, Minaur,
Alex the Manure.
Alex
de Minaur. Yeah. The player avatars bear a striking resemblance to Nintendo Mii's, or more specifically, the Sportsmates version from the Nintendo Switch Sports. Now, the real-time implementation here is a bit rough and ready. The oversized balls often flash in and out of existence. Players' clothing can look a little ragged, and the rackets have a habit of floating beside the player's hands. But the overall effect, it's fairly impressive. Easy enough to follow, and along with the live commentary, entertaining enough to not feel like you're missing out too much, because you can't see the real Carlos Alcaraz.
Thing is, though, fair enough that it's a clever workaround, but if I was a big tennis fan,
that's so weird.
God.
I really wanted to see it in motion.
Oh my God,
That's so bizarre.
it's really strange. I don't know, actually. I was halfway through making a point, and now I kind of retract it. I was going to say, if I had the option of, if I was a big tennis fan and wanted to watch the big game, as they call it, would I want to watch that one or just someone else officially broadcasting the thing? But
I'd like to see it with other sports.
maybe I'd like to just watch that.
I'd like to
That'd be more
see.
interesting.
I'd like to see like a football derby where they're all headbutting each other,
Yeah.
but they're like
See
Mii's.
boxing.
I want to see wrestling, and then you just can't figure out whose legs belong to who. So
just-
someone's bent all the way around, and you're like, who?
They could just use the
Who's
2K.
that?
Yeah, I was going to say they do that
24.
in 2K20 anyway,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah,
They have the technology.
that's my weird news.
Maybe
It's
horse
very
racing with just sort of them zipping back and forth, not quite in line.
It would enhance it in a lot of ways, I
Yeah,
think. My weird news comes courtesy of editor Ciaran and also Connor Bennett at cbennett_12 on Twitter. This is an article from Video Games Chronicle written by Chris Scullion. A speedrunner used a live band to get around copyright issues while attempting a crazy taxi run.
Love this.
This is an issue we run into all the time when we're trying to make videos.
I really want to stream Tony Hawk's Underground, but I just won't be able to. Even if I turn the music off, I mean, that would really take away from the experience. And then some of the cutscenes, I think, have it burned into the actual audio. So
I do that in WWE 2K24 at the moment. I've just got all the entrance music turned off, and I tell you what, it does make a difference. It definitely detracts from it. Near the end of this year's Awesome Games Done Quick, speedrunner Chuckles825 took on the Crazy Box mode in Crazy Taxi, which consists of 16 smaller timed challenges. While Crazy Taxi is well known for its soundtrack, which includes music by The Offspring and Bad Religion, it would have essentially been impossible to stream the game at Awesome Games Done Quick without triggering a DMCA takedown for copyrighted music. To get around this, the player put together a band called Limiter Cut, who accompanied the action with covers of the songs from the game. As Chuckles825 played through each of the 16 Crazy Box challenges, the band rotated through the songs, stopping at the end of each challenge to play the menu music as in the real game.
It's like the bar you can go to, I think it's in America, where you can play Mario Kart, and it's a live band, and they'll play the music, and then if you get a star, they'll change the music for the star.
And I think even if you pick up a power-up, they'll go like...
Yeah.
I suppose we can play some of the audio, right?
Well, yeah,
Yeah, I
because it's
guess
not
so,
copyright.
That's fun.
There we are. The crowd's having a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you reckon anyone's gonna say I would prefer it if you would be quiet? During the,
I would really prefer it
if you would be quiet.
That's great.
That's my weird news. Love to see that. That's really fun. Now, though, it is time for the big discussion. It's big discussion time for the big video game discussion. And wouldn't you know it, we're down a Peter Austin and our clothes have changed.
Yes.
That's because it's the future. The Switch 2 has officially been announced.
It was announced like an hour and a half after we finished the podcast, whilst we were midway through eating our lunch. But it was announced officially.
Yes. Bloody typical.
In a blog post, would you believe?
Yeah, well, I would actually. I bloody would believe it. So this big discussion is going to be slightly different in that, thankfully, the big discussion that comes courtesy of Chris McVeigh was a question in 2 parts. When we recorded the podcast yesterday, we didn't know that the Switch 2 was happening yet, so we recorded the second part of the question. It was a fun discussion, though, so we're going to cut back to that in a bit. But first, we're going to answer the primary part of Chris's question about the Switch 2 if it was announced, which it has been.
Yes.
So Chris says, "Hi, Bap.
Hi.
Hi. Your worst scheduling nightmares might be coming true." They have. Rumors are that the Switch 2 will finally be officially revealed on Thursday, so on the off chance that it is, and you record after that's happened, what do you think about what we've seen? So we did a news video yesterday in the wake of it being announced. As you say, it was a post on their website that then had a little sizzle reel trailer inside. It showed, I think it was probably the best way they could have done it in terms of showing the original Switch and it's sort of evolving
morphing into it,
and showing all the differences that that there are with the Switch 2. It's called the Switch 2.
It is.
That's great news. A lot of the stuff we're saying now may slightly invalidate the discussion we have after this that we recorded yesterday, but again, we think it's worth including anyway. What do you think about how it's designed?
I like the way it looks, though I do miss the colours. I think the Switch was a standout. So if you haven't seen it, it's now a black console, and then the 2 joysticks have the 2 colours, one of which is blue, as usual, and one of which is like a salmon orange.
Yeah.
I don't like the colour that much. No, it's giving salmon. And then also the colour is just, once you take the Joy-Cons off, there's that colour is there as well.
Yeah.
But it's not very colourful. And I kind of am a bit sad about that. Like, I was thinking about this a lot last night. I was looking at it. I was like, it just looks like a Steam Deck with like some nail polish on it. And I kind of wish it was a bit more standout.
I do get that. I really do understand that. For me, I quite like the look of it in terms of it. It feels like the grown-up Switch.
Yeah.
Now I understand that the concern could be that, well, is that going to appeal to kids, or the casual audience, which is a large, portion of Nintendo's audience. And I would have thought that yes, probably it still would, regardless. And I imagine it's not going to be very long before we start getting all those limited edition bundles.
Yeah. Colourful Joy-Con
Yeah,
situation.
exactly.
The other thing that I'm just going to give out my later opinions now, is it's not that different, and it didn't have to be, which we'll talk about in the past. But I'm almost a bit disappointed by how not different it is.
Right.
Like, it's bigger, and they've changed some stuff, which I think we'll go through in a minute. But I'm kind of a bit. I need to know more, I think. Yeah. Like, it's a Switch and I'm interested, but I feel like I need to know more. Yeah. Which we don't know a lot now, because it was literally just a video and some pictures. No. And we're not getting any more information until the 2nd of April. As Peter pointed out after we filmed the news video, and we didn't point out on the news video, is that it potentially feels a bit like the hand was forced. Yeah, absolutely. There have been so many leaks, and the design is spot on matching all the leaks that we've seen recently. There is going to be a Nintendo Direct dedicated to it, but that's not until the start of April 2nd, yeah. Not until the start of April. That's 2.5 months away. So it almost, thankfully, if there's any truth to what I'm about to say, thankfully the trailer was ready at least, or maybe they were rushing to get the trailer finished, but it feels very much like, oh God, okay, fine. We'll just come out and say, yes, it's real. This is what it looks like. Yeah. Please stand by for more information when we actually are ready and want to tell you about it. Yeah. What do you think? About it in general? Yeah. I like that it's bigger, which feels a bit weird to say, because for me the Steam Deck is appealing. Like, I like the idea of it, but I don't need something that powerful or versatile. I don't want anything that expensive, and it's also a bit too clunky. Yeah, it's quite hefty. Or chunky, I should say. So yeah, it's a big old thing. Whereas if I can get something that's a similar form factor,
And maybe it's not as powerful. It's almost definitely not as powerful. But it's at least within an ecosystem that I'm familiar with, that being Nintendo's. Then, yeah, as long as the games are there, I'm interested in that. I like that. As I said, I quite like the design of it. Obviously, it's called the Nintendo Switch 2. The logo's just got a big 2 next to it, so it's nice and clear for everyone what it is. It's not like a weird spin-off. It's not like a Wii U kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I understand where you're coming from in that they were. It would have been a difficult thing for them to do to radically redesign it, right?
Yeah.
So I understand why it looks the way it does, but for what it looks like, it does look like basically an evolution of what came before.
It's the, like I said in the news, it's its mature older sibling.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the Switch 2's like 10 years old, and the Switch 1's like 10 years old, and the Switch 2's like 17. Like
17.
She's feeling herself. She's like, I don't wear colours anymore.
I'm going through.
I wear a pop of colour in my earrings, and that's all you're going to get from me.
A little streak in my hair.
Yeah,
perhaps,
exactly.
Something like that.
She is going through her goth phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few things that we saw in the trailer that confirm, again, a lot of stuff we already knew. So the Joy-Cons are magnetic. That was obvious. Talk to me about these optical sensors on the interior.
This is like purely based on, I mean, it's not purely based on nothing. So a few times on the video, you can see the inside of the Joy-Cons once they've been removed. Yeah. You can see the 2 magnets at the top and the little connector that connects directly into the Switch. And then just above that is a little optical sensor like you'd see on the bottom of a mouse on both of them, a tiny little one. And it like flashes briefly in the video. And we were like, what's that? And then obviously there was a rumor a little while ago that you could use it as a mouse, like the Switch Joy-Cons. And then during the trailer, they are like sliding along on their side in the trailer and then they pick up and get put back onto the thing.
Right.
So I'm like maybe 75% sure that we might be able to use them somewhat like a mouse. For what though, I don't know, but it's an interesting, I don't know if it's just to tell the console that it's been plugged back in, but
they made a big deal of showing it
there, so like it doesn't really make sense there. But they have made a big deal of showing it, and I think if they hadn't have like slid along the floor in the trailer, I'd have been like, oh, maybe it's just like to click in. But I think you can use it as a mouse.
Yeah,
I have a theory. I don't know if it's true. It's like something was rumored. There was a small leak about someone being like, yeah, you can use it as a mouse. So I don't know what you'd use it for. What they're gonna bring out that makes that useful. But it's interesting.
Yeah. I was going to say something that's completely left my mind. No, I do remember now. So in the original big discussion that we'll get to in a minute, we talk about sort of the fact that this is the first console in a while that doesn't really have any new gimmicks to it. And it seems that potentially this could be one, bearing in mind that if it is a mouse or some kind of sensor, all manner of like, you wouldn't get Call of Duty's using it, for example, but you might get outside of games that would traditionally use it, like maybe if it supports Baldur's Gate 3, for example, you could use that to instead of traditional controls. But like indie developers could make some really interesting bespoke software for Switch.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, obviously, right now, again, we've not got that much information. They've not said anything about any of this, but it would be an interesting gimmick. And I would be interested to see why they felt the need to do that, if they've got either certain software involved on the Switch or they've got games that they've planned for this. But surely it has to have a purpose outside of maybe just a few games using it.
They've had previous systems that have had web browsers, although naturally you would expect such a family-friendly console to not really lean into like a web browser experience and use a mouse for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Potentially that could still be an option though. But speaking of things we don't really know what they do yet, there's a mysterious button.
Yes.
There's a new mysterious button.
There is a mysterious button. As we know on the Switch, there's the capture button and the home button on either side on each Joy-Con. But now underneath the home button is a mysterious new button, which I think was called the C button in rumors and leaks. But we don't know what it does. Maybe the C is for computer, and that's when you can just use it as a computer and use your mouse.
Yeah, could
Joy-Con.
be. I genuinely have no idea what that would be, unless it's... So is there still a capture button?
Yeah, on the other Joy-Con, there's
the
the
other
capture
side, that's
button,
still
then there's the
there.
home button, and then it's
And
underneath
there's the
home
C
button.
Yeah, what could that be? I do
don't
wonder.
know.
Because if it was just, hey, we've added another button to the front, you would
Yeah.
expect it to be near the A, B,
Yeah.
X,
If it was
whatever the
like
hell.
a gameplay button,
Yeah.
you'd expect it to be used up there. But because it's by the home button,
Yeah.
you would assume it's something to do with the actual software of the Switch rather than it being an in-game situation.
No, you would. That's
So
true.
there's also 2 like triggers on the inside of the Joy-Con. So you've got your typical ones at the top, but then there's some on the back, which I'm pretty sure are just to release the magnets.
Yeah.
From the looks of the trailer. So there's extra little things to touch.
There's also a new, more flexible kickstand at
Yeah.
the back that goes all the way down, so you can, say, have it on your lap, I would imagine. And much like the, what was it called, the OLED Switch,
Yeah.
the kickstand goes all the way across the back. It looks way more versatile than even the OLED one is very rigid and only goes to a certain angle, whereas
Yeah.
this looks like, you'll be able to position it quite well. Hopefully it's strong, though.
Yeah, it looks like they're really leading into this like tabletop style use of the Switch, because they've also put a USB-C port on the top as well as the bottom. A lot of people would complain that like, well, if I'm trying to use it like handheld, I've just got the charging cable protruding out the bottom.
I've had that issue where I've got it charging when I'm laying in bed.
Yeah.
And it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah. So they've added one to the top now. So if you've just got it on your lap, you can play it. But I think they're really leaning into this being used as like something you've propped up. Like the fact that it basically goes all the way down or like can stand directly upright is interesting, especially with the potential of a mouse. Like it's all very like interesting things of like, you can almost use it as a laptop situation. So I want to know more. Like, what are you doing?
I think in the Direct, we'll see a lot of fantastical use cases for a lot of this stuff that may never actually come to fruition. But certainly, all these features will be snapped up by developers who want to continue working with Nintendo.
But the kickstand does look good.
It does look good.
Looks solid.
One thing that is returning, though, is the TV dock. That basically looks exactly the same. It's got the logo on the front. You slot your Switch in it, and then it goes straight into the TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
No further details about if it's more powerful in docked mode or not.
If it's
Lots
a
of
higher
rumors.
resolution.
Lots of rumors, but nothing confirmed as yet about that.
Yeah, it's coming out this year.
Yes.
We don't know when. I'm hedging my bets for June.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Because we got the Direct on April 2nd, and then they've got a hands-on event happening worldwide, all different places. Check your nearest one if you fancy it.
Yeah.
From the 13th to the 15th, or at least that's when the London one is running.
Yeah.
So I would assume late May, early June.
It's going to be happening soon. Do you reckon they haven't announced a date yet because we don't know when GTA 6 is coming out?
I don't know if they're waiting
Because there's
for
no
GTA 6.
way that GTA 6 is coming out on the Switch too. I'd be so shocked if it did.
Yeah,
they might find a way, but God, I have no idea.
I don't think that they're waiting for GTA 6. I feel like the Venn diagram of people who are chomping at the bit for GTA 6 and people who are chomping at the bit for a new Switch is not a circle. It's like quite distinct circle.
That's true, but imagine being the selling point of being able to take GTA 6 on
the
go.
road.
That would be very appealing to a lot of people. It's also, per the leaks, or confirmed after the leaks, going to be backwards compatible with physical and digital Switch games, although there may be some exceptions, like we talked about in the news.
Yeah.
It's probably a sort of PS5, PS4 game situation. When the PS5 launched, there was like a list of like 6 or 7 games that they couldn't get to be backwards compatible, and a few of them ended up being patched, so they would work. So that's just covering their ass as much as it is like, but more so than it is like an alarm bell. Like, oh my God, what if Animal Crossing doesn't work? An alarmo bell, yeah, exactly. The big thing though, in a list of several big things, is that quite prominently shown running on the Switch 2 was what was apparently a brand new Mario Kart game.
Yeah, so we've had not confirmation from Nintendo, but the Mario Kart sleuths out there have confirmed it. There is a new one. We've seemingly got more characters racing. I think I saw something this morning that was like 24 characters that you can see racing, which is more than they're currently able to do on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Special Edition.
Yes.
100%
It
the best.
seems to be a new track as well.
New
is that
track,
right?
new karts, a little bit of a new look to some of the characters as well. So yeah, it's a new Mario Kart, potentially Mario Kart 9, potentially a launch title, but obviously we don't know. But I would assume so, given that they're showing
it with that, they could have quite easily just shown it with Tears of the Kingdom running nicely, and and they wouldn't have. No one would have asked any questions.
No, but like obviously the original Switch. We had Mario Odyssey as like the big kind of like selling point, what we saw it play a lot of the time. So this is interesting to see that this is maybe their launch title, the big
Certainly
one they're
is.
dropping it with.
Yeah, this goes back to a chat we had on the podcast like a couple of weeks ago, doesn't it? Like, how do they do this? It's reassuring to me, at least, that if they are going to do Mario Kart 9, what we've seen. The very small snippet we've seen appears to be a new track.
Yeah.
I do think that if they stray back and start, bundling in and then start especially selling older tracks that have just been released in the ultimate deluxe version of Mario Kart 8, that might ruffle some feathers a bit. But Ciaran, our editor, did point out, and he managed to zoom in and get a snapshot.
He was going frame by frame
of one of the karts. Is that some of them had like snowmobile type tracks, so there may be more of a focus on terrain and how your vehicle's set up for that. Maybe some snow themed stuff, etc. Although that wasn't a snow themed level that we saw.
No, it was like they were just driving down like a dusty road. Yeah,
with the Caterpillar tracks on. But certainly Mario Kart, that appears to be new.
Yes. So there's a few things we don't know. Obviously, we don't know when it's coming out. We don't know whether the screen is an OLED screen or an LCD screen. People are hoping it's an OLED. A lot of people have said that if it's not an OLED, they're just going to wait for the OLED version to drop instead of buying a new Switch.
Yep.
I would assume it will be an OLED.
I'd like it to be OLED, but
it would be weird for them to go back on themselves, apart from obviously for the cost reason.
Well, that's exactly it. One of the other things we don't know is the price. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for them just to release 2 SKUs right up front. Like, if you want the best version of the Switch 2, you can get the OLED one with more internal space.
Yeah.
However, if you'd like a slightly cheaper one, there's an LCD one with perhaps slightly less storage.
Yeah.
And that could also be an option. Again, total conjecture.
Yeah.
But we don't know. And price-wise, we also don't know. You've written down here how much the original Switch cost.
Yeah. In 2017, the original Switch was released for, well, it's actually dollars, but I've put pound, $299.99, and then the OLED was released for $349.99.
Yeah.
So we're looking, I think, my theory, we're looking at $450. We don't know we don't know the specs yet, so this is purely hypothetical. There was some like leaked specs, but I don't know if those were ever really like definitely confirmed by anyone. And I just think it's not going to be as expensive as getting a PlayStation or an Xbox, but I don't know how they're going to be able to make it super affordable with the specs being beefed up, because parts are more expensive now than they were back then. I think this article where I got some of the like information from regarding like release dates and whatever, they were saying that some of the parts that they use in the original Switch have now like tripled in price to buy and install since the last time they made a Switch. So unless they've got new suppliers or completely changed parts or started manufacturing their own parts, then maybe we might see it being a bit pricier than the last one that came out. That is possible. We talk a bit about our believed price in the rest of the big discussion that's coming up in a moment. But for now, I think that's all really that we can say about the Switch 2 based on the 2.5-minute trailer that we saw. Yeah. We will keep you posted, obviously, on anything and everything that we do hear about the Switch 2 over the next few months. I'm glad that we've got some stuff now so that everyone will stop talking about it for a while. Like, there will stop being so many leaks, I think, because now we know.
What else could they leak?
Their specs, the price.
Yeah, you know what? It's not going to stop, is it? There's still loads to come. So now I'm going to read the second part of Chris's question, and then we're going to pass over to Past Us to answer that question.
And if we say anything stupid about the Switch 2, you can't be upset about it because we didn't know about it.
No, yet. Chris continues. So given that as of Tuesday, the Switch 2 seems to be just a more powerful, slightly redesigned version of its predecessor, is it of any note that there's no obvious innovation/gimmick attached to this console. The original Switch had the hybrid form factor, the Wii had motion controls, even the Wii U tried to do multi-screen asymmetric gameplay, etc. Obviously, this is a case of not fixing it because it ain't broke, but are we missing something by not having some insane new gimmick on a new Nintendo console? Over to you, Past, Ben, Peter, and Ashton. You'll all be laughing on the other side of your face when the Switch 2 gets announced, and it's nothing like the renders that we've seen, and it's basically a Labo fishing rod. It's the wildest thing you could possibly imagine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was talking about this to Ciaran actually earlier, because we were talking about, again, how every single time there's been something new, there's been an innovation. Nintendo have kind of changed the game a little bit with what they were doing, and it would be a shame to see what would just be a souped up Switch. But also we have to obviously talk about the fact that the Switch has been an amazing seller for them, and everyone owns a Switch pretty much. So it would make complete sense to carry on with that format. But it does seem a shame, if we are to like believe the rumors, that there is nothing particularly new about it. You know, the Joy-Cons still come off. The difference that we know so far is that it's magnetic instead of it being clip-in. The screen's bigger. The hardware is more powerful. But like, is that going to be it? Like, is that all they're going to do?
Potentially, yeah. If we're to believe the rumors we've seen, then at least like looking at it as a piece, it just looks like a souped up Switch. You know, it might be that like within there in the software, there's some kind of crazy innovation that they talk about and say, oh yeah, might look like a Switch on the outside, but here's this strange new thing we've added in. It would be very Nintendo, and particularly it would be Nintendo of the past few generations, as Chris points out. And so it does feel strange, or it feels not strange as such, but yeah, it's something we've gotten used to, I think, is Nintendo coming along with a new console and there's some crazy new gimmick in it and they're not doing it this time. But, you know, they kind of were burned a bit with the Wii, which was, you know, a super popular console, very successful. Then the Wii U came out and, you know, the name implies that it could have just been some kind of souped up Wii. It could have been the Wii too, but the Wii U was kind of strange and no one really liked it and it didn't sell very well. So maybe they're thinking the same thing here, that the Switch is just so popular. It does exactly what it's meant to do reasonably well, you know, other than a bit of Joy-Con stick drift and, you know, a few minor issues here and there. So just improving what they've already done is probably the way to go in terms of making the money, even if it's a shame to not see a new crazy Nintendo gimmick as far as hardware goes anyway.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It is a shame, but also completely understandable.
Yeah.
As you said, we're still going to have the Joy-Cons. It'll still be a hybrid portable machine, presumably. The Joy-Cons will still have like motion control support, things like that for silly waggle games and party games and so on and so forth. It just feels like, based on no James Jenkins interjection and no further news, it feels like a maturation of the Switch, the original Switch. And it is a case of, if it ain't broke, do fix it, I would say, because there's a lot of areas where the Switch falls down.
Yeah.
Especially now.
Especially now, yeah, exactly. So yeah, make a better version of the Switch. They stumbled upon this formula that worked so well for them. It would be insanity to just completely scrap it and try something new.
Yeah.
As you said, the Wii did very well. It's a harder one to follow up though than I'd say the Switch, because the Wii was built on the back of accessibility in terms of new audiences of people were playing games for the first time, but inherently it was slightly wonky technology that didn't really work, and you can't really do another one of those unless you tighten up the gameplay. And then do people want more of that again? Like that literally was a gimmick. Do people want the same gimmick again? I would argue not. I think that this has worked so well for them. You just need a system now that really plays the Animal Crossings and appeals to that audience, but then can also play Elden Ring as well.
Yeah, I think you could argue that the Switch, even though it is innovative, I don't think it's gimmicky. I think that maybe is the difference. I think that maybe the consoles that came before it from Nintendo that were named in Chris's question, such as the Wii, as you point out, Ben, yeah, that was very popular, but it was a gimmick. You know,
I
to
feel
have
like
the
the
new
only-
motion controls.
The only gimmick is the detachable Joy-Cons, because like you see a lot of like,
Yeah, I guess that's
especially now,
unnecessary.
like a lot of handheld devices, most of them are just built as is. They don't, the controls doesn't come off. So the kind of the Joy-Cons being detachable, I would say, is there any gimmick? And even then, like it's not like a massive
Yeah,
gimmick.
that's I guess that's slightly gimmicky, but certainly the main selling point of you can either take it on the go or stick it in a dock and play it on a TV. That's more than a gimmick. That's just like actually really clever, innovative technology. And so yeah, I think that's the difference between what the Switch is doing and a reason why they would just want to do it again but better versus perhaps something like the Wii or the Wii U or you know even the DS with its stylus. And
Well, the DS like didn't shift too much because obviously had the DS, then we had the DS Lite, or was it DSi?
Yeah, DSi, DS
And
Lite,
then
DSXL,
3DS.
and then 3DS.
And
3DS
like those
XL.
were obviously like, the innovation being it's now more compact, and now it's bigger, and now it does 3D. Like those were kind of the big innovations, but even those were just like a
Yeah.
software shift.
And it didn't make that much difference because
No.
the DS family sold an insane amount of units as it was. They could have done nothing to that. They could have they could have literally just done. Well, that's the point you're making, isn't it? The Switch 2 doesn't need to stray too far from the course.
No,
If
exactly.
they made it 3D, I don't know why they would.
No.
Yeah.
It would still sell as many copies as if it didn't, and people
Yeah.
would probably just play it without the 3D on.
And Nintendo has got probably just as much previous for bringing out a better version of their current console. You know, the NES became the SNES and was essentially just it's more powerful now and has better rendering capabilities. Game Boy got the Game Boy Advance, which again didn't add any crazy gimmicks. It was just now it's better.
Double the resolution.
Exactly.
And then it folds.
Yeah, and then it folds.
That's great. Put a backlit screen on that bad boy.
But you know, yeah, Nintendo have done that plenty in the past as well. They've not got a complete history of every time something new comes out, it's a new gimmick. Which is, I'm not saying that's what Chris is trying to argue here, but yeah, you know, they've done both in their history, and maybe it's time to switch back to
Whoa.
to just bringing out a better version of what you're currently doing.
I suppose the biggest like shame with it just being a souped up version of the Switch is that Nintendo are such an interesting company when you look back at their history and what they have done in gaming. It's almost a shame that it's not something new because it's not pushing anything further. Do you know what I mean? Like,
No.
I mean, I understand that like it's not Nintendo's responsibility to like push gaming further, but the Switch made such a huge impact because of it being so different from what was currently on offer, and
As did the Wii.
and both of which have like I think pushed certain other elements of gaming. Like obviously like the handheld PC market now is so big, and I'm not saying that's Nintendo's doing entirely, but with the Switch selling so well, it only makes sense that people look more into doing handheld things. So it's a shame from that respect that they're not doing something new to see what like that pushes and what that innovates with the rest of the industry. However, like I say, makes complete sense not to do something new because you've got a like almost perfect device. There's no need to push yourselves too far and potentially make something that people aren't going to want.
That's just it, isn't it? It's they're in a very safe space. There's no need for them to do this. They needed to do it after the GameCube. They couldn't have gone in a further direction from the GameCube, which was, for all intents and purposes, a normal console, basically the same as the PS2 and the Xbox at the time.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, big swing. Let's make a motion control console and see how that goes. Did really well for them. Then they tried to sort of go halfway between a standard console and a motion control console. Didn't work. Had the Switch. It's one of the best-selling systems of all time and stands a pretty good chance of potentially outselling the PS2 in time as well, which is currently sitting atop that pile. And why would you change that? The what am I trying to say? The phrase that gets trotted around quite a lot is that competition is like drives innovation and things like that.
Yeah.
But what we tend to see in the games industry, at least anecdotally, is that whoever's losing are the people who really push innovation. So you see Xbox at the moment, who are trailing behind, making massive sweeping policy changes to how they release their games and where they release them. You saw Nintendo do the same thing with the Wii. You saw Nintendo do the same thing with the Switch. PlayStation have never really been in that position, and that's why they just sort of stay the course. And in this instance, that's basically the exact reason Nintendo should do the same. And they shouldn't call it something stupid. It should be called the Switch 2, so everyone knows that this is the successor to the Switch.
Especially your grandma. Grandma needs to know. I agree that it's almost a bit counterintuitive in that you could say that Nintendo are in such a safe place at the moment in that they've done so well that, and because they're not, I mean, the console war doesn't really exist as it once did, but you could still say that PlayStation and Xbox are the closest of the big players who are still kind of competing with each other. And Nintendo has kind of for a while just been in its own corner, doing its own thing and not really having that same competition. And because of that, they're probably in a safer position to try something crazy. And if it doesn't work, well, at least all the Nintendo fans will probably still give it a try. Whereas if PlayStation or Xbox did something that didn't work, then they might be in danger because you might have people jumping ship. But as you point out, Ben, I think it's completely the opposite situation in reality. If you're doing well, just carry on doing it. You don't need to take those risks. Whereas if you are someone like Xbox feeling like things aren't going great, then perhaps you do have to like really shake things up and try something new. So why would Nintendo do anything else, really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any other points to make before we just wait and see if the Switch gets released later today?
Yeah.
Do you think there will be some wild software-related gimmick if we're to believe that the form factor we've seen is just the same?
I don't know if there will be, but I can certainly say what I'd like to see, and that's a redoubled focus and effort with the Mii's. Right. And I would like
bring the Mii's back.
I would like there to be bundled in sports software, not stupid Spocko Square or whatever it is from Switch Sports, like an actual one that everyone gets and everyone has a great time with.
Yeah.
And I would like the store to have the Nintendo eShop music again.
Bring it back.
Yeah, the Wii Shop music.
Because everyone loves shopping on a Wednesday, right? That's what everyone loves to do.
What?
Shopping on the...
Is that a reference?
Yeah, to the Nirvana video where they're like dancing to the music.
I have not seen it.
Oh, surely.
Sorry.
Surely
I'm really
sorry, Peter. You're on your own in this
you
one.
have. But
I might have done, maybe.
You're just pretending not to leave him on his own.
I'm just making it harder for you. Sorry, Peter.
That's all right.
What would you like to be in there gimmick-wise, software-wise?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think I would like the kind of return to form of but not just from Nintendo. I've been like return to form of the home screen being a bit more interesting, rather than just like scrolling through all of the different like games and then you like have to go to the tiny menu to find the things you need. I would just like it to be a bit more visually interesting. I mean, that's not a huge gimmick. That's just I would like it.
New UI.
Yeah. Also, it's not a gimmick. I would like Switch games to be able to have 2 different profiles on one Switch. Yeah. That's what I would like as well.
One island in Animal Crossing.
Per Switch.
Are you mad, Peter?
Also not really a gimmick. I'd just like them to be a bit more like less sort of a bit more less mercantile about how they handle their old stuff. I don't think they've got a great reputation, but they've got a half decent reputation for at least keeping that stuff alive, but they can be quite money grabbing with how they handle, if you want to play an old Mario game, for example, we're going to make you pay big for it and we might even take it away from you or something, or there's always I would just like Nintendo to say, hey, remember all of our good old games? We've preserved them, and here you can just buy them once, and they just play like a normal game. You don't have to like invest in strange packs or services or anything. And everyone should be doing that too, not just Nintendo. But I'd love to see just a load of N64 games added to the library, for example.
To be completely Francis about it, especially if you're familiar with emulation and that kind of stuff, and that Nintendo perhaps are one of the only companies who could monetize their older games because of those practices that you're talking about. There is such an extensive list of games that are just out there on the internet. And for them to just, even if they just took those, I mean, Sony did it, admittedly not very well, but if they just took those ROMs, listed them all there, and didn't charge more than a bloody song on iTunes, you know, like 79 to 99p, just let people buy it, just fill their boots. These games are kilobytes in size, especially the older ones. So just let people go mad.
Yeah, and it won't cost them a thing to, well, other than a bit of...
They'll just get
admin
money.
Costs or whatever, yeah.
I have thought about something else that I would really like, that I don't, based on the leaks we're not getting, but I think it would be really fun. Bring back the camera. Bring back a camera on the back like we had on the DS. Let me
print little black and white
Let
things.
me take really low quality pictures on my Switch. Let me film concerts with my Switch like people do with the DS. Bring back the camera. Let me take videos on my Switch. I feel like that would be so cute. Imagine your little cousin that's got a Switch and she's playing a Mario and she's taking family pictures on the Switch. Oh my God. Cute.
I can't believe a game like Tearaway doesn't exist on the Switch. I know it doesn't have a rear touchpad, but it has a front touchpad. Let people take photos of themselves and the things around them and have it be part of the game and stuff like that.
If it did have a camera on it, they could do stuff like Pokemon Go, but on the Switch. Like they could do augmented
Pokemon
stuff,
snappy things,
wandering around with a Switch, taking photos or whatever.
Give us a call, Nintendo.
Yeah.
We'll make it work. Well, there we are. That's our big discussion. Thank you so much for listening today, everyone. We hope you're well. There's a few places around the internet where you can find us. Peter's going to tell you a couple of them right now.
Yes, you can, of course, find us on youtube.com/Team TripleJump, and we are streaming on mostly twitch.tv/Team TripleJump, occasionally on YouTube for special occasions. And if you've got Amazon Prime, part of the bundle that you're paying for includes a Twitch sub at no extra cost, so you can redeem that against us and get all the benefits of being a subscriber.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky, on all of which we are at Team TripleJump, or the similar like / Team TripleJump on Blue Sky, you know. And if you'd like to support us, it's patreon.com/Team TripleJump.
TripleJ.mup is our website. There you can find links to everything that we do. And TripleJ.mup/video game will redirect you to a Steam page where you can, what's it called? Wishlist. Our upcoming video game that we are making. And why not you?
Why not
Leave
you?
a 5-star review on your platform of choice. It helps something to do with Al Gore's rhythms, and we'd really appreciate it. Just enough time to talk about this week's sponsor once again, which is, of course, Nintendo Switch. Who? What? When?
What?
Where?
Where?
Why? How?
They, won't they?
Huh?
Who?
How?
Nintendo Switch. Who? Coming? When? How?
Is it?
I don't know.
Are you sure?
What is Nintendo
I don't know
Switch?
what you're
Who?
talking about.
Anyway, we don't know. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.